Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. Today's guest is Sabine Shoepke, and
Perfect.
thank you. Yeah, she's originally from Germany. So she has a story of entrepreneurship, uh, resiliency, and on her road to a fulfilling life. So, Sabine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very good to see you and talk to you. So, you moved from Germany to Canada when you were only 16. Wow,
Yes.
that's I can't picture that. I wasn't ready for that when I was 16. Tell tell us about that, where your story starts.
So my parents always believed in us learning a second language. And so they sent each of their children abroad for a year, except that I didn't want to come back after that year. I really enjoyed going to school in Canada and I enjoyed my life there. And so I decided to stay. And yeah, and I had to be on my own because it was very expensive um, for us to go to school in North America. So my parents paid for a year, and then I was lucky I got a scholarship. Well, it wasn't really luck, it was hard work, but I did get a scholarship for my second year, and then after that, I was on my own.
So you adapted pretty well. How did you have a household that sponsored you, or how did you make it through your first year of living? And well, you said that your parents paid for your first year of school.
Yes.
How did that work out? How did you find housing in a different land?
Actually, I lived at the school for the first 2 years, and then I graduated, and then I was on my own. I went back to Germany. My parents wanted me to come back to Germany and graduate from high school in Germany, so they made me do that, and then I took off again, and I went back to Canada, and by the time I was 19, I was homeless in Canada, and I lived in Toronto and had to figure it out. So that's when I started my first company back then, and on a park bench in Toronto.
Ah,
Luckily, it was summer, so I was okay.
yes, yes.
But
It's a little cold in Canada at times.
yes, at times, yes.
So, how many languages do you speak?
Well, German and obviously and English, and then I studied Spanish and French also, but that's definitely at this point hibernating.
So,
But
yeah, go ahead.
the interesting part is that just in on December 31st, I actually, after all these years, I don't even know what it is, 35 years that I've been gone, uh, I went back to Germany. I moved back. I sold my latest company last year in June, and then I decided I'm going to leave Los Angeles and I sold everything. I sold my house, my cars, my furniture, everything. And on December 31st, I was back on that plane back to Munich and with two suitcases. That's all I own at this point. And so I'm back in Germany now. I'm back. I've come full circle.
Yes, yes. So,
Yeah.
after all this time in the U.S. and in Los Angeles, uh, was that a culture shock to go back to Germany?
It still is. It still is. There's I it's a very exciting journey that I'm on. But it's also there's a lot of surprises, like things that I really didn't think about when I made that decision, which is fine because I look at these things as challenges and I'm growing with them. And it's, you forget like now that I think about it, in the last few couple of weeks or a couple of months, the last few weeks, I realized, yeah, remember when I first went to North America and how hard it was? I barely spoke the language and, I had to find my way around and I'm back in that place today, except I speak the language fluently still. but everything else, I still don't fit in. Like I realized I don't fit in anywhere. I don't fit in North America. People look at me and speak and they're like, "Where are you from?" I'm from Germany, and now I'm in Germany, and people are like, "So where are you from?"
Oh,
I'm like,
really? But
oh gosh, okay.
but you still speak German very fluently.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So
yeah,
no problems there. Uh, yeah. Do any of us ever fit in? I wonder.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm like, okay, and now what? Like it's a new chapter, and it's exciting. It's very exciting, but it's
Good.
it's
Yeah.
also, I somebody said to me because it's a very different life here. It's very calm, it's very peaceful. There's no hustle,
Not
people,
like Los Angeles. Yeah.
yeah, it's like 180-degree turn, right? And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, come on, you know. And somebody said to me, there's this saying, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right now, but he said, well, you can take the girl out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the girl. And I think that's my personal challenge right now, to really chill, like to sit back and say, you're okay.
Ah.
You don't need to continue hustling like this. You don't need to continue working that hard. Like, give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little time. You've been working since you were 19, and it's time to just enjoy.
Is that what gave you the impetus to go back to Germany? The slower. You're talking about a slower pace, but you live in a large city though, Munich.
No, right now I don't. I don't. I
Okay.
live smack in the mountains, like really high up,
Ah.
away from everything. The little village I live in has no street names. There's no store, there's nothing. There's no restaurant, no pub, there's nothing.
Okay. So you have
So,
to drive to get anywhere where you can buy groceries or
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. But the thing is, for me, it was a multitude of things. I've always wanted to come back here and live here for a while, for the last 20 years. And I also wanted a slower pace. And my parents are still alive, so I wanted to be nearer them for a
Yes.
little while. That
Yeah.
was really important to me. And then my daughter actually graduated from high school a couple years ago almost, and she took off and she moved to Switzerland to go to school there.
Ah.
So I was like, what am I doing in LA? And my son took off too. He came back in the meantime, but it's like I feel like I've accomplished my mission in North America. I
Ah.
built a life, I raised my kids, I need to go home. I need to, give back to my parents. I need to,
Ah.
you know.
So basically, your whole family is not in Los Angeles or in Germany.
Yeah, no, my parents are still in Germany, but they're about 3.5 hours away from where I'm at. And my daughter is in Switzerland. She's about 3 to 4 hours away from where I'm at. So there's nobody here, but
But you can visit.
yes.
Yeah. So was your entire experience with, of course, you were in Canada, but then,
I was in Canada first, yeah, the first few years, and then I had to expand my business, and so I opted for a bigger market, which was the US. So in '96, I went to the US, and I had been in the US since '96, in Los Angeles mainly, a couple of years, or 2, 3 years in New York, but then back to Los Angeles.
now to me, I was raised in Southern California. So the counter shock between New York and Los Angeles
Yeah,
is terrific too. I mean,
yes,
I have spent my whole life in the West. So I'm in a small town in Oregon now, and I've lived in small towns in Wyoming. And originally, Fort Collins, Colorado was a small town, only 20,000 people when we moved there. Now it's 10 times that big, but was the fastest growing city in the nation for a while. But I'm used to these big spaces.
yeah,
And I grew up in Southern California, but only till I was 19, and then I've never spent any substantial time there. I did work for 4 years in Fresno, but my experience is, with kind of wide open spaces. Uh,
Yeah.
so your experience was in Toronto and Los Angeles, anywhere, and New York. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
No,
most people I meet here and they realize I'm not from here. They say, "So where are you from?" And I said, "From Los Angeles." And they look at me in disbelief. They're like, "Why would you ever leave Los Angeles and come here?" Where to start? I mean, it has nothing to do with Los Angeles. There's nothing wrong with Los Angeles, but it's just I was ready. I was ready for something different and a slower pace and then they say most of them say, "Oh, I've visited Los Angeles. It's beautiful." I said, "I agree. Yeah, of course, it is beautiful." But,
good
you
climate.
know, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So tell me about the slower pace in Germany.
Um, it's Sunday, like Saturday afternoons, but like 2, 3 o'clock, everything closes. And then everything is closed until Monday morning.
Yeah.
So I love that. It feels like a real Sunday. I've always missed that living in North America, where everything is always open except like maybe 2 days out of the year.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's about family now. It's about rest. It's about going for a walk or cooking a great meal, where in LA I always felt like every single day it was like, you gotta go. Like where you gotta go, you gotta go. You gotta do stuff.
Yeah.
So I love that. And yeah, and then most things close for lunch, like between two, like 12 and 3 or 12 and 2:30, everything is closed, or a lot of things are closed.
So you're talking about the bigger cities as well, because you don't even have a restaurant in the town that you live in.
Well, no, but like the bigger cities like Munich and stuff, like it's not like that. Like it's Sundays it is, but during the week it's not. They're open all day long. But like the next bigger town, which is it's not a big town, it's a little village, but at least they have everything. But yeah, they close. They
Yeah.
take rest at lunch. They eat and they take a nap.
Yeah. So how long did it take you? I don't know how large your town is, but how long did it take you to fit in enough to make build relationships and feel like you have
Oh,
friends and
I don't. I haven't. It's very difficult, especially in places like this where they're very traditional, very conservative. They're very much to themselves, and it's very difficult. I was talking to somebody, like I joined a gym again, and I talked to somebody in there this morning. They were a little bit more open. It's a little bit more of their own culture, community culture. You're more accepted in there, but it's very difficult. It's
is it
it's my
easier?
biggest challenge.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Is it
Yeah.
easier to make friends in North America or in Germany?
Oh, in North America. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I
Huh.
I went to World Cup jumping, flying a couple of weeks ago, and there was 10,000 people watching this, and it was impossible to have a conversation with anybody. And I speak German fluently, and I would attempt to have conversations with people that were standing like shoulder to shoulder with you, and they would look at you like, "What do you want? Why are you talking to me?"
That's
And I had friends visit from North America and from LA actually, and they looked at me and they were like, "What's wrong with people? Why is nobody talking to each other? Like they're just to themselves." And I'm like, "That's it. That's my struggle."
that was my impression with New York City and the East Coast a little bit too.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, everybody is there's so many people that you're in a crowd of people you don't know all the time, and people kind of protect themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we're talking about life and all these changes that come your way. And see, you have a lovely smile. you're good at adapting to some of these things. So I know that you have had a lot of difficulties in the past. You have two kids. They both, I think, really love and respect you.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, you you had a marriage, and now you're not married, and you've had you had an experience of being terribly attacked in your own home.
Yes.
Uh, can you tell us about some of the difficulties you had uh, coming to North America, growing up here, and what was that like? Because yeah, you seem quite peaceful right now.
I am. I am. I've experienced a lot over the last few years from, you know, trauma, cancer, a house fire, bankruptcy.
Mm,
But the thing is, like, I've always gotten back up. And
yeah,
like, I might have taken a moment to say, whoa, okay, let's gather ourselves. But I've always gotten back up, and I've always ended up making peace with what happened. And
uh,
I I I feel like it's a way to forgive, and then you're able to move on. And in a way where you can turn these things that happen in life into gifts. I know it sounds crazy, but like even being attacked, like I was asleep and I was attacked in my own home. Like that was
yeah,
not like I had, I didn't ask for that. I didn't do anything to provoke that. Like I was
right.
asleep. Um, and yet, like I struggled for a while with PTSD, and I was scared to go to sleep. I started drinking. I was in really bad shape, and um, the legal system is not there to protect you. It was very, very difficult for me, but I worked through it, and I discovered my love for working out, like bodybuilding, because of that, and it changed my life in a way that, you know, I want to say probably a year and a half, 2 years later, I could look back at this and be actually grateful for what happened because it changed my life so much. And I I can say that pretty much about anything that I've experienced in life, that I have a way of looking at these things and see the beautiful silver lining that comes with the suffering. It's the growth, it's the change, it's the evolving. And so that's why, like, even now, people are like, oh my God, why are you doing this to yourself? Why do you make life harder for yourself than it had to be? Like, you had a good life in LA, you had friends, you had a beautiful home, you have, like, your son is there, you have a life partner, and you pack up and you go and make it hard for yourself. But I don't see it that way. Yes, I realize there's moments where I struggle and it's difficult, but for me, that's a sign that, okay, you're being challenged again. You're growing. You embrace that, and there's growth happening. That's why you're uncomfortable.
Right. There's days when there what happens is not what we wanted. uh,
Right.
and we have to go through all the feelings of that, and then you can look back and you can say, wow, I went through all that. uh,
Yeah.
you realize it even more than when you were going through it, that you've emerged from that and you've done all that. So tell me, what's your secret? It seems like you've always had this resiliency. uh,
It's no secret. The thing is, when things happen to you, and again, like I'm saying that, but I'm very good also at taking responsibility for things that happen. But there's certain things in life that they just happen, like you have no doing in that. You're not
right.
provoking that. So things happen in life, and you can either put your head in the sand and suffer and make yourself the victim of that, or you can say, okay, let's push through this, because I know things always change. Like nothing ever stays the same. There
Yeah.
is light at the end of that tunnel, and I have this joy and this love for life that I don't want to stay down there.
So that's always the ultimate choice, isn't it? We can be beaten up and feel sorry for ourselves, or we can realize that life is always an adventure.
It is, and it's
Yeah.
it's exciting. It's beautiful, and it's interesting. I like 3 weeks ago, I got on a flight with my daughter and we went to Athens for a weekend, and I we were split up on the flight, and I was sitting next to this man and we immediately started talking, and I'm telling you, it was the best 2.5 hours of a flight I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
It
wow.
turns out he was a seeker. He was a monk who lived on an island in Greece, and he was a seeker, philosophically, spiritually. And the conversation we had, the most important nugget of that conversation was he asked me, and he said, "What do you think is the most important thing in life?" And for me, I said, "Love, compassion,
Yeah.
and the people you love, relationships." And he kept smiling, kept saying, "No, no, no, no." And then at the end, he told me, he said, "It's realizing that we have a choice."
Yeah.
Because when you realize that even when it's really crappy, that you have a choice on how you're gonna not react, but respond to that, what you choose for yourself, when you realize you have that power, like we can't change the circumstances, things happen, but we can change how we respond to that. Then you feel empowered, you feel liberated, you feel like, okay, this is up to me. Let's do this, you know. And that's and I had never heard that before, but I totally agree with him. That's exactly, without knowing it like that, that's what I've been doing throughout my life. To
Yeah.
choose, to choose to see the glass half full instead of half empty.
I think if we stopped right now, which I don't want to do yet, but if we stopped right now, that is so beautiful. There's people try to write definitions of freedom, but that is it. You always have a
Right?
choice, and the choice is love. Do you love yourself?
Yes.
Do you love your life? Do you love other people? Really love them?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we always have a choice. We always have a choice to make this beautiful thing. To
I
see,
just wrote an episode yesterday that came to me because of, I'm so secluded most of the time, there's a lot going on, but it's not the noise anymore that I used to have in LA, of like, oh gosh, you got to do this and the pressure of that and da, da, da. Now it's the noise of my thoughts that evolve. And so I wrote an episode yesterday, and it was called How to Fall in Love with Your Life.
oh, that's beautiful. Is it?
And it goes back to the same thing. You choose to love your life. You choose to love people unconditionally.
Yeah.
You choose to. Somebody said to me, he said, "Oh my gosh, it's raining all the time." He says, "It's horrible." And I said, "No." And she's like, "What do you mean? It's always gray." I said, "Okay, it's like the rest of our lives. There's seasons. And right now it's raining, but look what it does. Look all the flowers that are coming out of the ground. And it's a new season. It's spring, our gateway to summer. Like we need it to rain, so it's green and these flowers." I said, "It's beautiful. It's like it's rejuvenating." That's what I see when I see the rain. I choose to see things that way.
Yeah. That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
So I think it's all, we can go outside and we need to. And we can very easily just absorb the beauty. The, I mean, we don't have to do anything. The sunlight comes into our eyes, or we see the trees or the mountains, and you can't help but feel the beauty in that. But there's a little bit of beauty beyond that. If we can just, uh, we saw the mountains, but do we see the life? And that's what you're talking about. You love life, the beauty beyond the beauty. The
Yeah. Even the
beauty
the
in the gray.
in the gray or in the
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah. There, there.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's difficult to make a living, especially when you're young, but you've been fairly good at that. You had a business to start with, and then you had another business, and I didn't know that maybe you just wrapped that one up. So could you tell us about, how did you go out on your own in Canada, and how did you start your first business, and what came of that?
Okay, so when I think part of seeing the beauty in things is also being open, open to, and in this case, I've always had a a gift, maybe you want to call it, to see opportunities. Like I can walk around all day long and I see opportunities everywhere. When people complain about things, like let's say, for example, like during COVID, um, people said to me afterwards, they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your business is still alive. You did well." And I said, "It's not luck. It has nothing to do with luck. It's actually, I saw the situation for what it was. And whenever there's a downturn somewhere, there's opportunity presents itself. So I opened myself up to that and took advantage of the opportunities that present themselves when things change. So for me, it was the same back then, living on both continents. I saw things, how they were done in Europe versus how they were done in North America about pricing. People would say to me, "Oh, when you're coming back to Germany, can you bring me some Levi's? Can you bring me this? Can you bring me that?" And I realized that there was a difference in pricing and the structure. So I got into that business. I got into the exporting business back then. It was just, it was so apparent to me. I'm like, why is nobody doing this? Like you can buy cheaper retail in the US or Canada than wholesale in Europe. Like, why wouldn't you buy it and ship it? So that was my first business I ever had. And it was it was beautiful. It was, it just, yeah, it was perfect for the time. Later on, laws changed. And I had to stop doing what I was doing, like because corporations realized, wait a second, there's people like me who fill entire aircrafts with Levi's and Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein. Like, we need to stop that. Like, and then they changed it in the Supreme Court in Europe that this was not allowed anymore. If you're not the official license holder, you're not allowed to do that. So, but I had a few really good years with this.
Yeah, so
And
you
then,
were actually changing international economics a little bit. Uh,
yes, the cause of some of those changes.
yeah, is that a discrepancy in the price structure in some items still exist, or have
Yes,
international corporations taken advantage?
it still exists, but they came up with laws that do not allow shipping of goods anymore if you don't have the permission of the license holder.
If you
So
don't have what?
if
What?
you don't have the permission of the license holder, you're not allowed to ship it across borders.
Okay. So what about the big corporations like Amazon?
Well, they have, it's the corporations themselves who sell on Amazon. So they can do that. But I
Yeah.
couldn't just sell, let's say, a pair of Levi's on Amazon to Germany. I couldn't. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So you used your gift of observation and awareness, um,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
support yourself. So when you have that, now later on, you formed another business, and what was that called?
Well, I think altogether, I had probably 7 different companies throughout my life. And the latest one was an e-commerce business I had, which was, again, it was a love child of mine. It was something I created for myself. It was jewelry design.
Mhm.
Back then, we had a house fire. We lost everything. Insurance didn't pay. We were completely bankrupt. Lost everything we had ever made. And it was a year of just struggling and lawsuits. And I created these pieces for myself of jewelry that were hand stamped with words that I could hold on to, like that reminded me how blessed I was to have 2 healthy kids, or how I wanted to focus on the joy of life, like, okay, you got this. It's gonna be okay. It's just money. Don't worry, you're gonna figure this out. Um, so I created these pieces for myself, and then other people noticed them. And so I started that business in the trenches of like being completely bankrupt. And I started it on like, I think, $200 in the spare bedroom. And at that point, I was single mom with the 2 kids because of what happened. I lost their dad, like, as a life partner. And I started that, and it turned into a beautiful, beautiful passion project that ended up being a philanthropic project. So part of that business was to give employment to moms and give them a chance to do something that they love and still be moms, have the flexibility in a job to take care of their children. And then on the other hand, it was I gave back to different causes that help children transition out of homelessness.
Uh,
So it became a total passion project of mine. And yeah, last year I sold it and moved on.
yeah. So did you need to start another business when you got back to Germany?
No, and I haven't. I am really focusing right now on, well, I'm trying to learn to not focus on achieving. My mission, my personal mission, right? Because I've done it all my life, right? I was always like, go, 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 very structured, very disciplined. Um, but I realized I no longer have to be fear driven. Like, I'm trying to switch my attitude from fear driven, which I'm so used to joy driven.
Ah,
So switch it from focusing on achieving to really becoming and just being for a while, and focusing. I have a few clients I work with in the coaching business, help them get different perspectives on life and enjoy life a little bit more. That's my mission right now. And then I do this. I published a book last year. I'm writing on a second book right now. And I have a podcast, which I'm like, is it another passion project to just share what's going on in my head? And I've been getting amazing feedback from that, and people who say, oh my God, thank you for saying this. Thank you for sharing how you think and how you overcome adversity and how to be more resilient. So that's like, I honestly, I don't know, because I'm very good at sharing that and verbalizing that and speaking about it. I'm just horrible at marketing it. So that's my big challenge right now. It's like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, yeah, I have a podcast, but I don't know. And I'm trying to not get into this, then figure it out. Let's do this,
yeah,
because it would take over it would take over me. Like, I would get totally into that again, and I would figure it out, yes. But it will take away from the real reason why I came here, to spend time with my parents and to travel and to just be a little kinder to myself, and just enjoy without the hustle.
yeah,
And that's exactly where I said, like, somebody said to me, he said, you can take the girl out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the girl. So that's what I'm working on right now, to just, you're good. Just chill. Be nice to yourself.
So you're doing some coaching online now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I work with a few, just a few clients at this point, and love it.
And you're
I
finding
pick.
that more difficult to market than your other businesses?
I don't know if it's more difficult, but everything was difficult at some point.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to put in the brakes onto myself and say, no, just whatever, whoever's going to find me is going to find me. You don't have to market yourself. Just leave it. Just speak your truth. Just put it out there and focus on the things that you really enjoy doing, which is like talking, like with you, like I love that. Okay, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I love to write. I'm going to continue writing these books. I love to record my podcast. I'm going to continue doing that. And from my own experience, like this is what I tell people. They're like, what am I going to do? And like, what's your advice? And I would say, just follow your heart because everything else is going to fall into place. When you do that, everything else is going to fall. So I need to take my own medicine and just chill. Say,
Yeah.
just follow your heart. Just
Yeah.
do what you love to do and don't worry about the rest.
What is the name of your book?
The first book I wrote is called The Love Odyssey, and it's about relationships and communication and how to build
Oh,
beautiful relationships.
The Love Odyssey.
Mhm.
Oh,
It's on Amazon. It's
I have to
actually
read
a
that.
bestseller in like 4 or 5 categories at this point. And it's a small book. It's like, I don't know, 90 pages, but it's just, it came up and I'm like, okay, let's put it out there. Let's see what happens if it helps people to make different choices.
I'm a little familiar with your story, of course, uh, did a little bit of research, but it seems to me that you are evolving further than what I've heard of your story before in a wonderful way. Tell me about how you're continuing to evolve.
I think even so I got here on January 1st, and even that little bit of time, I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was on January 1st. Um, but I'm also, from my own experiences, I know that we just don't arrive. We will never arrive.
Yeah,
And I got to be okay with that,
yeah,
and I'm learning so much about myself, which is unbelievable. It's like you think, okay, I got this. I got myself. Yeah, I got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And then you open a whole nother Pandora box and you're like, oh, wow.
yeah.
Which again, you sometimes feel a little uncomfortable about it,
Hmm.
but it's very exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, I have to read that book. Where yeah, learning is infinite. Well, it'll never
Yes.
stop. You, the basis of what you're sharing is what you said. We always have a choice. We always have a choice to love ourselves, to love life. We always have that choice. But the learning never stops. I lost my wife of 51 years last year, and I think every time I think, and we do have our center, and we are doing all right. But then you wake up on another day and oh, there's a new pain I haven't felt before. That I mean, it just life just goes on. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's always more to learn. Uh,
And
and
you know
then
what? Also, if I can add that, and people, just like we never arrive, we also, the suffering doesn't stop,
mm,
but it's up to us to deal with it. Like we have no control over our thoughts. The thoughts just come and go. And some days they're all rainbow and butterflies and everything is great, and it's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful outside and your heart is full and all of that. And it's so normal that there's other days and other moments where you just want to cry. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good. And
Yeah.
and that I feel like people need to understand that it will never stop.
No.
And that's okay. You
Yeah.
know, it's okay. And um we can't get down on ourselves about that. You know, it's
No.
just
No.
but
Sad.
we also I feel like we need to understand that it doesn't last. Like when you're in that, you know, I had like last weekend, last Friday, I had nothing planned for the entire weekend. And I knew I wasn't going to run into a soul. And for a moment, it really got me down. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh no. And I remember a Friday afternoon, I came back from the gym I went to, and I came home and I cried. Like I stopped. And then I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. Gonna be fine.
Yeah.
It's gonna pass. Just feel it. It's okay. It's nothing is wrong. Nothing has changed. You know, it's just our thoughts that come and go.
Yeah. I appreciate you being real. And we can know joy and sadness at the same time.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And there's no sense striving against life. Just be there with it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I appreciate that. So a lot of things that when you when you're young, you have maybe many years in front of you, and you there's no way to anticipate what's going to happen.
Right.
You said it's an adventure. Some of the best things that have happened to me in life, I certainly haven't planned. uh, I got involved in running when I was in high school, but I didn't do it for the sake of running or competition. I did it just because I was stubborn. I wanted to change my schedule in high school, and but it became a lifelong blessing. I'm 74 now. I don't run as fast as I did when I was 20 for sure, but I still enjoy, being out there doing that. And
Yeah.
then I did, I did get into almost some pretty heavy weightlifting at one point, and I did it because somebody challenged me to arm wrestling and I lost. So I put everything I had, but then you enjoy it, see.
Yeah.
So the blessing goes way on beyond that, and I know that uh, we have to be physical people.
Yes.
We have to at least get outside, do some of these physical activities that we love and enjoy. And when you do it, we know there is a unity between the brain and the body, and and they bless each other with activity. And I know that you are uh, someone who's embracing life, but your bodybuilding and weight training has actually blessed you in more than one way, probably with community and even in a sense of yourself. And it they say that exercise affects every cell in your body. So talk to us a little bit about your love of being physical. I know that you did run a little bit for a while, or maybe a lot, and then you had quite a journey with bodybuilding. So can you tell us about that journey and where that part of your life is now?
So I discovered it right after or shortly after the attack, and um when I really hit like the lowest point, and I was drinking heavily and I didn't want to get out of bed and I was just so scared. And a new training facility opened up like right in front of my house, and somebody said to me, so you should go there, try it out. And at some point I said, okay, fine. I went there and I realized immediately that it was a high intensity interval training that, oh my God, that makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, like you said, there's a connection between our physical activity and our mental health, our mental well-being, how we feel. And I realized that really quickly. And I ended up going every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. just to make myself feel better. Okay, you okay? You okay? All right. Um, and then they had a competition, a worldwide competition, and I said I'm going to compete, and I ended up winning a female highest percentage body fat loss, and I went from like 35% body fat down to, I don't know, it was like 18 or 15 or something like that. And then COVID hit and everything closed and that gym closed. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? My drug of choice is gone because I stopped drinking before the competition. I ate really healthy. My whole life changed. And I really truly believe that working out saved my life. I don't know where I would be today. So and then I talked to a friend who had a nutrition store in LA, and I said, hey, don't you know a coach, somebody who has a gym or something I can train with, like during COVID? And he said, yeah, I might have somebody. And an owner of a gym called me and it said, hey, come on by. I look at you. We'll see what we can do. And I went into his gym. It was closed, dark, no light, no AC on. It was just him in there. And he said, take off your clothes. I want to see if this is worthwhile. And I was like, okay. So I took off my clothes. He looked at me. He's like,
You
yeah, I
took
can.
off your clothes?
Yeah. And he said, I can do something with you. At that point, honestly, I had nothing to lose. I was like, I was so in the trenches. So I'm like, whatever. Okay, sure. Here you go. Now what? And he said, yeah, I can work with you. There's something we can do. Um, but he said, I'm not going to babysit you. It's going to have to come from you. And I said, okay. And from there on, him and I became best friends. He's like a brother. He just got married before I left, and I was his best man at the wedding.
Oh,
And we trained every day during COVID in the closed gym, in the dark, no AC. We would make sure there was no police. We snuck in to his own gym and we trained every day. And he was like, he was exactly what I needed, somebody who just was kind to me and he pushed me hard, but he was loving, like as like a brother who was like, come on, let's do this. And he kept me on track, and he really helped me discover the love for bodybuilding. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, 4 years ago. And after that, like ever since then, I would train at least 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, sometimes twice a day. And I changed my body tremendously. Like I'd never felt better. I would look in the mirror, I'm like, gosh, I didn't look that good in my 20s. Like, wow.
yeah.
And my lifestyle changed again, and I got into a community that was so beautiful and supportive, and um yeah, it was some of the best time of my life, I have to say. And I then last year, after I decided to leave, that was the hardest part for me, to leave that community. And then I had cancer last year and I had to stop training. And then after I could train again, shortly thereafter, I knew I was going to leave. I couldn't get myself to get back in there. And then I got here and I was like, I need to find a gym. I need to start training again. And no, I realized different chapter. And I've really realized at this point that this is my chapter of being kinder to myself. And now I found a beautiful gym where I started working out, and it's all about like being nurturing and being loving to myself. And I go in there almost every day, but I don't leg press 670 pounds anymore. I work out. I feel the blood running through my body and it feels good. I get into this zen of like connecting with every muscle that I work out in, but it's not the go heavy or go home anymore. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's much more enjoyable. I mean, it's a different enjoyable. I enjoyed it back then too. I enjoyed the push, but now it's more, okay, this is about longevity. This is about feeling good. This is about I take classes now of stretching and Pilates to like, take care of myself. I feel like I don't have this urge anymore to prove myself. I don't need to prove myself to anybody anymore. And I also don't have this fear anymore where I feel like I need to be strong. Like I don't need to be strong physically to defend myself, and I don't need to be strong emotionally. I can say it how it is. I can make myself vulnerable, and that's okay
Yeah.
because I don't have to pretend to be all that strong and, which I know I am, but like I don't have to prove it to anybody anymore.
So you did 3 hours a day, 6 days a week sometimes. Uh, you were younger then,
A little bit, but not much. That was last year.
and you were in maybe your 40s then?
No, no, I started, I think, when I was 48, 49, and I'm 52 now.
Okay. So that's a lot of training. Were you able to keep it more or less in a healthy state where your joints are not aching or you're not injured here and there? Or,
No, I never got injured, but I was in constant pain.
uh, yeah, I understand that. When I started lifting weights, I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and then I go carry mail all day. And then I come do it again in the evening. And it was a little too much too fast. And I held up pretty well. I was only in my 40s, but yeah, your joints get a little bit tendonitis and things.
Yes.
And
And
then I did get some minor injuries. It didn't really stop me, but uh, yeah. So now you're working out, but you're doing it in a healthier mode. Extreme competition, it can be beautiful at a certain time in your life, but it's not exactly the same as health.
no,
Training
no,
for the Olympics is not training for your maximum health.
no.
Hopefully, you have to stay healthy enough to keep training. But
But
yeah,
it had its purpose, and for the time being,
mhm,
it was beautiful. It was a
yeah,
great distraction. It got me out of the hole that I was in. It gave me a new perspective, and I enjoyed it tremendously. Like I
mhm,
have no regrets for pushing myself that hard. It
yeah,
was a phenomenal time, and it was amazing people, some of the biggest people in the bodybuilding world, at Gold's Gym in Venice, and fabulous. I mean, amazing. So I have no regrets at all, but I feel like there's a time and place for everything, and you need to recognize that too.
yeah,
And that's part of this journey over the last couple of months where I'm like, okay, you're gonna do what?
yeah,
And you see your body change, and like as you probably know, there's a lot going on in your head when you go from like being almost competing ready, being lean and strong, and to you stop cold turkey, you stop because I got sick, and
yeah,
you see you have body dysmorphia. You look at your body like, oh my God, what's happening? Especially when you're like in your 50s, and the hormones are like all over the map, and all of it's yeah, it was a trip, to be okay with yourself, to be a little rounder, and like my metabolism all of a sudden wasn't as high anymore. And I was like, what is happening to me? Like these love handles that I never had before. And I would say to people like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. And I'm like, no, you look amazing. I'm like, ah, no. So there's a lot going on in the head.
yeah. The standards change.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So uh, you competed at the beginning of your experience with bodybuilding, but then did you do any more competitions?
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
My trainers always wanted to push me for it. And there was a lot of people who tried to convince me to do that. And I just at the end now when I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do this. And then I got sick. and then I didn't do it.
Uh,
And um, yeah, and I also realized I was kind of on the edge. I was more about doing my trainer a favor because I was his like showcase. You're like, look what I did. And he had done an amazing job with me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get on that stage and here you go. And and also my friend who owned the gym, he kept saying, you will never be ready, just do it. Come on. You in your head, you will never be ready.
yeah,
You will always think you need to be bigger and bigger and bigger. But I also realized there was a bunch of us getting ready and we were practicing the posing and they were saying, oh my God, I can't wait to be on that stage for 8 seconds and just everybody's looking at me. And I was like, what? And I said, I don't care about that. They're like, but that's our goal for everybody to see what we did and say, look at me. And I said, I don't care about that. This is not about the ego. Actually, everything I do in here at the gym, I said, this is my only place where I don't feel like I need to prove myself. Like I'm doing this for myself to make myself feel good, not for ego.
yeah,
And that's when I already knew, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to showcase myself like that to get validation. I don't need validation. And I also don't need people looking at me and saying, oh my God, her traps are too big and her shoulders are too small. Oh,
yes, yes. Uh, Even after all that work, the extreme criticism.
yes. And I'm like, I don't need this. I love my body the way it is. Yeah, I'm really trap heavy. I have massive traps. Guys look at me and they're jealous, but that's me. I
Yeah,
don't want to be critiqued for that. Oh,
you know,
so I knew I was like, I don't want to do this.
I think maybe the biggest bodybuilders were big people to start with.
No, not necessarily. Like, no, I don't think so. But like, I even look at my son. He got into it,
Mhm.
after I was in it for a little while, and he was this like he's tall but like super skinny, just a stick, and he's like I don't know 6'3" or 6'4" now, and he wow, he went from like just having just bone and skin to wow,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So it's more about it's not even about the height; it's more about the proportions.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
putting the muscle on, that's yeah.
very different from the strongman contests where
Yeah.
people are walking with a barbell with two motorcycles on their shoulder or lifting these heavy stones.
Yeah, very different.
The
Very,
physiques there are very different.
absolutely.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, every sport is unique, but you're into the difference there in something that's very important, the difference between accomplishment and life, living.
Yeah. And that's my second book I'm writing right now. It's called From Achieving, or it's going to be called From Achieving to Becoming.
Yeah.
And it's I'm living it.
Yeah,
I'm really and it's very interesting how we're programmed by parents, educators, society to
mhm.
achieve more, 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 bigger, 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 and that's supposed to make us happy. And I realized a few years ago, just also before COVID, I was like, oh my God, I have checked all my boxes. I achieved everything in life I wanted to achieve. And I fell into like the worst depression because I realized nothing changed. I am still the same person. And now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Set the bar even higher and achieve more?
Yeah.
And that's the first time I wanted to sell the business, but then COVID happened and I couldn't. But that's when you realize, wait a second, there's something else. What is this all about? It can't be about like driving a nicer car, more expensive car, an even more expensive car, and getting a bigger house
Yeah.
and a better school district. And you realize none of that matters. And that's exactly what like it confirmed itself over last year, like between October and December, when I got rid of everything I owned.
Mm.
I'm like, I get rid of my cars. I get rid of my house. I stood in my house, I remember, and the whole house is like built with stuff. And I'm like, we're gonna have to get rid of everything.
Yeah.
And to emotionally detach everything. And even now, like I live in a furnished rental and I feel so good. I don't own anything. I don't care what's on the wall. And I used to be like, oh, this needs to be decorated this way and that way. And, like this needs to match this and that. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Mm. Yeah.
Like we're wasting, I feel like so much energy. We're filling these voids we have with stuff. And like even now, I went to IKEA with my son when he came visit. And I said, all I want in here is some candles. I need some candles. And where I live, I can't buy candles. There's no like, and we were driving and I said, oh my gosh, there's an IKEA. Let's go in there, buy some candles. So we bought some candles. We walked through IKEA and my son was like, don't you need this? How about this? How about that? I said, I don't want to buy anything anymore. I don't need it. And I kept saying, I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need this. I have 2 suitcases.
Wow.
And yeah, I have a couple of things coming. Like I shipped a few things of like baby pictures for my kids, like stuff that I can't, it's not more materialistic. It's more, like I don't want to get rid of that stuff. But, but otherwise I got rid of everything. I just gave it away. I sold some stuff, but like, God, this feels good.
Yeah. I can identify, you've lived a lot of your life. Not, but you have a lot left to go. But you
I
had
hope so.
that question of, I've already done all of these things. And so uh, beyond that, what's the real, what's the real deal? What's the real beauty of life and what I can bring to it? And yeah, so
And really, for me, it answered itself. And I know what that is today. Today, it's about sharing my experiences, my stories, my thoughts, my possible inspirations for others, maybe give others a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope that, and maybe different perspectives that will help them to get through those challenges easier and make their lives a little better. That's today. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but I really mean it. Like that's what I feel like what my purpose is today. And um I I'm just going to do the best that I can at it because, like I said, I don't want to get lost in the whole how do I market myself? Like, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to focus on the one-on-one with people. And I also have the faith, just like everything else in life. Like, I've always met the right people at the right time that said, oh, we heard about you, or we read your story, or like, it's always worked out. And I don't want to push and pull anymore. I just want to, it's going to work out that somehow I can reach more people and I can leave a greater impact in the world.
yeah, I can really identify with that. I mean, uh, my mother died in January. My wife, my beloved dog died in August, and my wife died in October, very first day of October. And
Sorry, oh my goodness.
yeah, and when she died, part of me died too, of course,
Yeah.
because that wasn't just a wonderful marriage that lasted 10 or 20 years. That was our entire life, her entire adult life. I met her as a teenager, and when she was a teenager, and we did everything we learned in life. We learned it together, and so I can readily identify with, especially since I'll be 74 in April. I can readily identify with. I've already done everything,
Right.
and I've already experienced this beautiful gift, and so all I have left is to tell my story and to relate to my family better, and to learn, I want to tell my wife's story too. So I really appreciate what you've had to say today. I appreciate the strength of your voice because I can hear your story and the strength of your voice. And I just want to really thank you. I also would like the audience to know how they can get in touch with you. Your coaching, you don't have shiny little things anymore, or shiny little.
No, shiny little blessings.
Yeah.
It's still out there, and has a beautiful new owner.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, the
Shiny Little
website is still there.
Blessings.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's still there. And I still support them and help them, you know, run this business because it's near and dear to my heart. Um, but yeah, what I do now is I have a website called thepowerlifecoach.com. And then on there you find everything. You find the podcast, which is the Power Life Coach. And I am on social media. I have a presence there, but you find all that information on the actual website of the powerlifecoach.com.
Powerlifecoach.com. Okay. Sabine, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was so
Well,
nice talking to you.
a wonderful conversation, a wonderful connection. So,
I
uh,
appreciate
yeah. All right.
it.
As I say, oh,